Welcome back to another segment of Behind the Scenes of the Waltons. Today I'm going to conclude my conversation with actor Kelly Ward. So please welcome back, Kelly. You mentioned a couple of other we talked a little bit about a couple of the other things that you had done to like stand out besides Grease and obviously the Waltons. in your acting career, we'll start there. What other projects did you do that really were standouts for you or meant a lot to you to be a part of?
Well, the Waltons was certainly huge because it was such a big phenomenon uh, at the time. Much in the same way that MASH was huge, and I got to be. I think I did an episode in the 13th season of MASH. I finally got on, but that was important and meaningful for me. Um,
Did you play
I
another soldier?
I did, I played a soldier. I played a soldier. I often played soldiers or surfers.
Huh. Okay,
Um,
the blonde hair.
yeah, and they would have to tan me up. When the boy in the plastic bubble, I had to put a man tan on every day to look like I actually was out in the sun. Um, John Travolta himself said, "Don't get too much solar exposure. It's bad for your skin. You'll regret it." And he was right. I've had my experiences with skin cancer,
uh,
but but yeah, I played a soldier in MASH. Um, I was blessed to become a part of the cast of Zoot Suit, the film version of Zoot Suit. I was one of the few people who didn't do the play. Again, it's another commonality with Grease. I hadn't done the play. Pat Birch was the choreographer, so I knew Patricia. But I got to meet Luis Valdez, and I got cast in that production, which was really interesting and unique. They basically staged the play, and we shot it.
hmm.
Barbara Streisand came down to watch us shoot because she was intrigued about the process. That was a proud moment. I got to work with James Garner when they tried to reboot Maverick
Ah,
for 6 episodes, and he was one of the most generous actors
mm,
ever. He taught me how to quick draw
cool.
because I was supposed to be a gunslinger, and he said, do you know how?" And I said, "I have no idea." He said, "Let me show you." And he went to the prop department, got me a six gun, and he promptly showed me how to do a quick draw.
Huh.
That was pretty special.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a very brief career. It lasted 10 years before I switched into the other side.
And what is the other side for our audience?
Um, the other side has been predominantly animation, writing, producing, creating shows, and directing voiceover for animated production. Been doing that now for close to 40 years. And my main gig these days is directing Mickey and Minnie Mouse, Donald and Daisy Duck, Goofy and Pluto.
When you say direct, how do you direct those characters?
Well,
Is
I'll
this
get
like you're directing the voice actors who are voicing
yeah,
the characters?
yes. And this has been a process of narrowing down my responsibilities to this one kind of specialized function. But yes, I'll get a script because of long experience reviewing storyboards and having been in the film industry and knowing how shots are set up and master shots and coverage and all that kind of thing. The language of animation screenwriting was very easy for me to pick up early on. Um, I still break down a script like I'm watching it on a moviola or on a flatbed, and I direct the voice actors. Used to be that we would direct in ensemble. We'd have the entire cast in, and we'd record it like a radio play. And I learned that technique from Gordon Hunt because he was the voice or dialogue director for many of the shows that I was a showrunner on.
Mm.
And then I decided I wanted to incorporate that into my portfolio as well. Um, and I asked permission, and Gordon very graciously said, "Sure. Why don't you go ahead and work on the shows that you write?" And with the blessing of Bill Hanna and Joe Barbera. But yeah, so I'll break down a script in the way I imagine it being shot, and I work with the actors. But as I said, we worked ensemble, and you'd record it, and usually you'd get the entire episode done. You'd have a table reading for maybe 45 minutes. Then we'd take a break, and then we'd go into the studio and for the next 2 hours record the entire episode. And when we were done, we'd walk out, everything was finished. Nowadays, we record single mic, so we get one actor at a time. And that's the result of so many of the in-demand talent being in demand and unavailable all at the same time. So it's hard to get all those people in a room together. So now we do single mic. And while the task is somewhat easier, you don't have to keep track of so many things. It's also a little more difficult because you have to keep, well, your initial records, you've got to establish them with great fidelity and honesty, so that when the subsequent actors come in, what they're playing off is authentic and correct and has everything's vectored properly, and you can build out the dialogue track from there.
Well, that's fascinating because so do you want to start with key characters? Because I mean, if you've got
sometimes,
people
well,
in
yes, you always
the
do.
reactions to, I mean, as actors,
Right.
how I do a line reading, if you want to call it a line, how I say a line, deliver a line, it's going to be contingent on how you delivered your line to me. So
Exactly.
if I came in and recorded first, how do I know what you're going to do with it? So then am I trapping you into having to say it a particular way because of the way I responded?
In a way, and I don't know what my colleagues do, but in a way, in my mind, I play all the parts.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to anticipate, and from long experience, I've gotten to know the performers who play these characters. I can imagine the variations that I can get, and I can also request certain adjustments to get options in case we want an emphasis that might flow a little differently than the writer had in mind. But yes, it's a little tricky. Often I'll I'll do a hero take, and then I'll do an alternate take. Sometimes I'll do a third alternate.
So
So that
define a hero take.
um, the hero take is the take that I imagine will wind up in the final audio track. That'll be the line that the animators get and they animate to. But if I get a certain line reading from Donald Duck that elicits a response from Daisy, if Donald's a little more heated and Daisy's a little more, then I need to be able to get a more indignant read from Daisy. But sometimes I record Daisy first.
Mm.
So I'll sometimes get, well, let's be a little bit more, just a little bit more cheesed at Donald's attitude here, and that'll give me some variability.
Mm.
It's
Do you,
fun.
when the individual's in there, are they hearing, like, are you doing as if you're doing the offline readings just to give them, or are they just line?
I try not to do readings because I can't listen if I'm also acting with the actors. Generally, they know their roles well enough that they will give me an ABC take, 3 in a row. I'll try to choose from those 3 the one that's optimal, or I'll ask for 3 more or 3 more. Sometimes we'll get 16, 18, 20 takes on a line before we get something that's exactly what feels exactly right. But once we bank that line and I've determined what the hero take will be, I can play that as the cue for the actor who has the response. There's a lot of moving parts, but as we build it out, the context is much more helpful for people further downstream than it is for the first character. I found that it's often to our benefit to get either Mickey Mouse first or Goofy first, um, because their tempos are rather consistent and their level of energy is consistent, and other actors can almost always anticipate how they're going to read a line of dialogue.
Mm. Wow.
Yeah.
What a
So
fascinating world.
it is a fascinating world. It's really interesting.
Yeah.
And I mean, my job is narrowed down to these characters because there's been a surge in diversity in what I do, and many more people are getting wonderful opportunities to express their voices and to bring other shows to life that wasn't always there for people. So it's a great thing. I've got plenty of food on my plate, and and right now that's my main focus. But I've gotten to work with amazing actors over the years, and a lot of the people, well, fans know who all these voiceover actors are, and they will chase them down and get autographs and go to Comic Cons and hound them for the memorabilia as much as they might hound Angelina Jolie or Brad Pitt.
Ah,
Um,
Nancy Cartwright is a friend of mine.
well, then you know.
A
Um, yes, and
little
I've worked with
box.
Nancy, and she's adorable.
Yeah, she is.
Um, she's done characters that are remarkably close to Bart on things long ago that I was writing and producing.
And
Um,
Jim Beskimen's another friend. I don't know if you've worked with.
Jim's a neighbor, and he's one of my
Oh,
dear
okay.
friends
Yeah.
and one of the most talented voiceover guys in the world. I
Yeah.
adore Jim.
So sweet.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Meskimen is incredible.
Yeah.
There's nothing he can't do.
I know. I know.
I never would have made a transition into writing and producing animation if it hadn't been for one of my dearest and oldest friends convincing me I needed to go to the Groundlings and do improv
Mm.
with him. And I think it was more like his wingman to make sure that he was comfortable with it and settled. So we did. We went down, and interesting side effect of doing that, I started booking a lot more work.
Ah,
It improv really helped a lot. Um, but that led me to meet the guy who said, "You should consider writing. I like your comedy. I like your sense of humor. Would you consider writing something with me?" Okay, sure. Okay, yeah. And he wound up being my mentor, taught me how to be a screenwriter.
mm.
And when a job opened up at Hanna-Barbera Productions, he spoke up and got me that job.
Wow.
And I went into Hanna-Barbera as a showrunner,
Wow.
having never written,
Starting at the top, huh?
yeah, and scared to death that somebody's going to find out. We were co-running the show,
Uh-huh.
but scared to death somebody was going to find out.
Uh,
And the jig is up. The jig is up.
yeah.
Uh,
All right, before I let you go here, because I will have to let you go, I warned you about this.
Get out.
I just have too much fun. And it's always fascinating to me. I love, when my guest is interesting enough that I'm caught up and I just want to know more. I'm like, I get a point like, I don't care if the viewers aren't interested or not, but
Oh,
is there anything particular message that you would like to leave the audience with, or something you'd like them to know, or something you'd like to pitch or promote, or anything in particular before?
wow. I wish you'd
Giving you
prompted
that as
with
something to
that
think
before we started rolling.
about. You
Uh,
have a sort of a life philosophy that you have found has really served you over the years?
oh, family's important. in terms of a philosophy. It's not so much a philosophy. It's just they're guideposts. Family has been very important to me from a very early age when, like many people, or unlike many people who have a drive to express themselves in the arts and aren't encouraged. I had the opposite. Um, I was always encouraged. My future wasn't mapped out beyond the fact that it would be really good if you could make a living doing those things, and we'll support you in that. Um, but I got that from my family, and more than just my parents. My both sets of grandparents were performers.
Mm.
My mother's father was a light opera performer. He did the entire Gilbert and Sullivan canon, and he was also a symphony conductor. And her mom was a vaudevillian, and she toured the country performing. And she also played cello in the symphony.
Hmm.
My dad's side, they even in the remote place where my dad's dad was shutting off the generator at 9:30 in that remote little town of Ingomar, Montana. They had a dance band, and they would play casuals all over uh, eastern Montana. And my grandmother played piano at the silent movie hall that her dad owned.
Wow.
I had permission to be in entertainment. There's nothing like encouragement. A positive word to anybody who aspires to be in this business is worth its weight in gold. It's worth gold. It's um, criticism, not so good, but encouragement,
Mhm.
that's the key.
What do you feel is important, or the value of art in the society, when things are being cut and stuff like that? What's your feeling about that?
There's nothing more important than art. The artifacts we find, the statuettes and the creations that go back to Stone Age man, are the things that last. They're the things we put in our museums. They're the things that connect us with our history as a storytelling creature. Story in music and in dance and in narrative goes way back. And it was even mandatory for citizens of Greece to participate in the play cycles that were produced annually. You had to do it. That was part of your civic responsibility. Um, and that's not that long ago when you really get down to it. So art is critical. It's how we distinguish ourselves from other animals. When you are rehearsing a play, and we both know this, but we don't express it that often, there's nothing more important. You could be audited by the IRS. Horrible things can be going on in your life, but when you have an opening night looming, everything else is secondary. Everything. It's the strangest thing. The playing field is level. Nobody's one issue is more important than anybody else's issue. Everybody is on a level playing field in terms of their importance to the story.
Yes, and you have to pull together to make it work.
If you
You
don't,
have
it
to rely
doesn't.
on each other, yeah, and trust each other, yeah,
You leave all your baggage at the door.
yeah. We could go on, and we should revisit just for fun,
Sure,
I
that'd be
really
great.
enjoyed this. This has been so great to, I mean,
Yeah,
it's only
yeah.
taken us 50 years to get to know something about each other, but it's been
Huh?
well worth it.
Better now than never.
Yeah.
No, I'm really glad that you reached out. This has been great. It's been fun to talk about the Waltons. Oh my gosh, it's yeah.
Well,
Thanks,
thank
Judy.
you so much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining me for the conclusion of my conversation with Kelly. I hope you've enjoyed getting to know him a bit. I know I sure did. I will be back with more behind the scenes of the Waltons and more of your questions in an Ask Judy. Thanks for watching.